Well,
Here
good
we are.
evening, good morning, good
And good
lunchtime,
afternoon.
anywhere in the world. You're on Untold Radio's Down South Anomalies. My name is Jay Katz, and each week I'm joined by my beautiful wife, Aspasia.
Thanks,
Nearly
Jamie.
lost it then.
Yeah,
I nearly
we
went
did.
straight into your stage name. Now, initially, we state every week that we are broadcasting on stolen land here in
Yes, we are.
Australia.
Mhm.
This is part of the Gadigal Nation,
Yeah.
the Eora tribe.
Gadigal people, the Eora Nation.
Oh, if I
Yep.
get that wrong.
Yep. That's all right.
We have to acknowledge our respect for elders past, present, and emerging.
Exactly.
And if we just gave the land back to those people, I'm sure we'd have a much better time. We wouldn't be ruled by a corporatocracy.
Mm.
We would go back straight into the world of the anomalous, where we would dispel the myth
Mhm.
that superstition and all that stuff is just part of folklore,
That's
when
right.
we know there's a reality behind all of it.
Exactly.
Now, we've just come back from an incredible field trip investigation on a
Yes.
cruise ship in
Yep.
which we took the kids and the grandkids
Mhm. We had a great
into
time.
the South Pacific, the
Yep.
largest,
Not the
deepest
musical.
body of water
Yes.
in the
Yep.
entire world.
Yep.
And we actually explored some very interesting islands.
Well, you know, we would to go. Our stops were Noumea, Mystery Island, Lifu,
Yes.
and back to to Vanuatu. But
Everything just
Noumea, I
well,
mean, not Vanuatu.
that's
Yeah.
there's a huge problem there
There was a
because
problem with Mystery Island.
yes, the weather was out of control
It
and there's
was.
no way. So let's have a little peek first at Mystery Island. Now, the fascinating thing to me is in terms of anomalous research, people don't usually talk about islands, of which there are literally hundreds, tens of thousands of these islands.
all over the place.
You herald from Greece.
I do.
Now, there is literally tens of thousands of
There
islands
are.
around
Yep.
Greece.
Yep.
And you're from Lesbos.
I come from the largest one.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
And let's have a little look at this Mystery Island, because this is an astoundingly small island.
It is. Oh, did you want to do? I'm going to show them your attempt at recording some stuff.
Oh, that's really interesting,
Yeah.
because we had big technical problems.
Yeah.
Next time we're going to have to take.
I'm taking a camera crew next time.
Yeah, we're definitely doing that.
Yeah.
So let's have a look on the ship, the Carnival Splendor.
Yep.
Jay Katz asking the crew about the possibility, inspired by Dr. Jeff there, the chiropractor.
Here's the thing, but you've got your woolen coat on. We're in the South Pacific.
Yeah.
It was so hot.
Don't want to be stylish.
And you're wearing a woolen jacket. And most of the time you're walking around with a flannelette shirt on and long jeans.
I look fantastic.
Oh,
I
my
didn't get
God.
sunburned, I'll tell you that much.
Well, you did around your neck, but anyway, and your face. All right, well, here's your attempt at interviewing someone.
Now, in the background here, people, you will see Mystery Island.
Well,
We
you
didn't
can't
get
see
to
Mystery
land on
Island.
it.
Yep.
Well, it's surrounded in fog and
mystery.
Yeah.
And mystery. Yeah. Okay, here we go.
Let's have a look. Jay Katz for Untold Radio. We're in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Now, I just want to ask you, have you ever experienced Bigfoot, the Yowie or the Yeti? Do you think they could exist? Bigfoot. You've never seen it? Do you believe it could be true?
Maybe we should have interviewed a Nepalese person coming from Nepal. They might have.
Well, there's a few down the road in the I'll have a word on it.
You could, but this was about the cruise island.
Now, that's Mystery Island in the background.
It is.
Surrounded in the fog.
So the sadness about that is that Mystery Island remains a mystery for us. Because we did not get off the cruise ship because of the really choppy weather.
Now, tell us about those boats. What are they called?
Well, the tenders, that ferry you off. So in Noumea, the ship docks in port.
That's right.
And it's not the most picturesque location when you get off the ship, because it's containers everywhere. It's a working dock.
It's actually frightening. It's
a working dock
and copper
mine. Yeah, you can see the mines
it's
everywhere.
Just horrible.
But Noumea is beautiful too. When you go off into Lemon Bay and all those places, there's beautiful snorkeling. You can go and swim with turtles and all kinds of things. But when we were at Mystery Island and Lifu, all the other small islands, the ship. Actually, I'll show you the island to
Let's
start
have a look
with.
at the island. How beautiful
That
is
is
that?
gorgeous. That's the island. When you dock, when you go there, this is what happens. So that you can see,
Yeah.
the island in the
I mean,
background
what
there.
is important to say to people
Mm,
here is that part of the local economy thrives through these cruise ships, and
absolutely.
they're incredibly limited in their access to the island.
Hmm.
Maybe once, twice, three times a month at
Yeah,
the most.
sure.
And what happens is the locals are able to sell and tender
Well,
their wares.
during the pandemic, because of the no cruise ships were going there, they really suffered
Now,
economically.
its proper name, how do I pronounce that?
In you, oh, I don't know. Anyway, yeah,
Inuyug.
yeah.
This tiny island measures only a few hundred meters wide,
As you can
and it is
see,
about a kilometer long,
yeah.
and is the airstrip for Vanuatu's most southernmost island. Air Vanuatu services the island from Port Vila, Antana,
Hmm.
and this service plus many cruise ships visit during the season. Now, they have seen Mystery Island's location become less of a mystery, but during World War II, this
Hmm.
small uninhabited island was used as a landing strip. It was a covert base for Allied
You can
forces.
see the landing strip
Now,
there.
US troops built the runway
Hmm.
for the Air Force in the 40s as they raged across the South Pacific. The mystery is said to have been derived from the fact that the airstrip was impossible to be seen from the sea, and therefore it took some time for the Japanese to determine where all the planes were coming from.
Yeah.
Today's Mystery Island guardians welcome tourists as friends, and these locals from the nearby enjoy the attention and the income from travelers. They provide string band music, lots of stalls, sell souvenirs, handicrafts, food, etc. You
Yeah.
can get a massage and a hair braiding.
Yeah. Yeah, you
Uh,
can. You can.
Visitors that want more than that can snorkel. Now, snorkeling across the world has actually destroyed a lot of coral reefs. So you're
Mm.
damned if you do, damned if you
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
But if you do snorkel,
Yeah.
and you've been snorkeling on a few of these islands,
I
it
went.
is
No, I've
unbelievable.
only been snorkeling once, and I snorkeled on Lifu at Genic Bay, and oh my god, it was like swimming in an
It was a
aquarium.
Jacques Cousteau film.
Oh, it was just so amazing. And then a friend of mine, Claire, said to me, she said, when we got back, she said, "Do you want to come snorkeling at Manly?" And I said, "Is it anything like Genic Bay?" She said, "No." I said, "Well, why would I bother?"
Now, no one lives permanently on Mystery Island.
No.
They
So
all
that's
leave at sunset.
nobody stays after dark.
Now, that's because it's haunted.
They
The
say that it's
locals
haunted.
feel it is haunted.
They will not stay
Now,
there.
maybe the hauntings, because no one could answer the question as to why it's being haunted.
So this is the welcome when you get there. So they really do welcome the tourists because they derive their income from it. And they put everything in canoes, all the food, all the handicrafts, all the trinkets and everything that they're going to sell, and they row it over to this island. They set up their stalls and everything, but at the end of the day, they pack it away and they go home.
Now, one of the reasons why it's haunted
Well,
is the mere fact that originally the people on there liked a little bit of human flesh. There was a bit of cannibalism going on, and now the tourism
a little
is
bit.
selling the cannibalism back to
What is
you.
a little bit
This
of
is what you're
cannibalism?
greeted with.
That's what you're greeted with. That's a pot. You can actually get in that pot, and there's a couple of the people, the native people that will grab you and make out like they're throwing you in there, or and you can have photo opportunities. And it's called the Mystery Island Cannibal Soup.
Now, we brought with us a couple of IR infrared cameras, and we were hoping to be so close that we'd be able to film the island
Yeah.
during the evening.
Yes,
But because of the conditions,
we couldn't
we
get
actually
there.
appeared at that island.
Mhm.
They quickly announced that it was impossible to go on it that day, way too dangerous.
Yeah.
And we were out of there.
We were.
So,
but yeah,
I mean,
we
those
did a
infrared
runner.
cameras,
I know.
I was really hoping to get at least an overnight image to see if orbs or something
I'm a bit
unusual
disappointed
would
that we
appear.
didn't get off because that was the 3 times that I've been there.
Yes.
That I had never gone to Mystery Island. Mystery Island was not on the
Itinerary.
itinerary. And I was really excited about it this time. But look, that's okay because I'm going back in September. Hopefully, I'll get on there.
You know
Anyway,
what we should explain to people
Mm.
initially, and a lot of people are probably sitting back going, I would never go on a cruise ship. And I felt that way as well.
you did.
And I felt that way because I saw it like for our American colleagues, it was Walmart on a Saturday morning, you know, untethered
It
from
was
its
like
moorings.
a mall that was, like a Westfield
It's a
that's been
resort.
untethered.
It's a resort afloat.
Well, it is a resort afloat. And, I personally don't see it any different to somebody going to a resort, which has got the pool, the beach, the private beach that you go
Right.
on, and everything, the entertainment and everything, like on a tropical island, you just stay within the resort. You don't actually venture out of there
But
because
one of
they
the
always tell you not
the
to.
most empowering things is that everyone, after a short while, whether you've got your $3,000 balcony suites,
Mm.
all become equal.
Yeah, they do. It
No
is an
one's
equalizer.
weight, no one's disability. So many disabled and elderly
Oh,
people
yeah.
have the holiday of their life, which they
Absolutely.
wouldn't be able to do with air travel.
No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't. But look, I will always talk up a cruise. I just love them. But if you're not interested, well, you're the one who's missing out.
All right.
Okay, moving on. So now we're going to go to another island that I've been to is the Isle of Pines, and you came to the Isle of Pines. Now the Isle of Pines is called the Isle of Pines because it is full of pine trees, and I think it's got one of the most species of pine trees on there than
Now,
anywhere
when
else.
I was first on the Isle of Pines, I actually asked a couple of the residents if they were aware of the parallel hominid.
Yes, you did.
Because I think we could actually take the research somewhere else. If you find out that all of a sudden, in the middle of nowhere, on these isolated small territories,
Yep.
that actually we're seeing something similar to Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Yowie, or the Yeti. And we had a colleague, the twin of the Australian actor Don Honey,
Yes.
who came to us about 15, 20 years.
More than 20 years ago,
And
actually.
he was living on a small island, I believe, around Papua New Guinea.
Mm.
And they were having extraordinary Bigfoot activity.
Papua New Guinea is a little bit bigger than, these islands in this,
But this was a remote island
Oh,
off
yeah.
the coast of
Okay.
it.
Fair enough.
And he was having incredible Bigfoot activity, you know?
Maybe we should track him down.
Yeah, we need to track
We
him
need to
down.
track a lot of
But
people
listen,
down.
one of the most profound things here, which is so exciting,
Yeah.
is that the Isle of Pines has the most mysterious,
It's really bizarre what's on there.
historical,
Yeah.
architectural structures that throw out the timeline in terms of
It's just-
orthodoxy into
yeah.
the bin.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do
We
is
really have set up.
we're going to go to an incredible colleague that I want people to go and acknowledge, subscribe, and support
Yep.
on YouTube. And that is Mystery History.
That's just such an amazing, they're
So much
brilliant there.
academia and science is brought to bear on anomalies throughout history, which you begin to realize this goes way beyond even the research of Graham Hancock.
Exactly.
So let's now have a look at the segment on these incredible structures. What do they call these structures? Tumli or something?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It will explain it in here.
All right. Thank you.
New Caledonia, a French territory in the South Pacific, comprising dozens of islands. It is best known for its palm-lined beaches and life-rich lagoon, which at 24,000 square kilometers is among the world's largest. Yet what many who investigate and visit the islands are unaware of is the enigmatic mystery of the tumuli, found particularly upon the Isle of Pines, with over 400 of the structures found upon this one small island. Once argued as merely natural formations via volcanic activity, this hypothesis, however, has since been disproven, and their artificial origins have been confirmed. Yet this is not the most peculiar fact to surface surrounding these mounds. Intriguingly, it is a very little, if at all, photographed set of artifacts, a series of small, man-made cement cylinders, each measuring around 40 to 100 inches in height and between 40 and 75 inches in diameter, They are the oldest cement artifacts officially discovered anywhere on Earth. Made from a very hard, homogeneous lime mortar containing bits of seashell which garnered carbon dates of around 10,000 BC, putting their earliest official creation at around 3,000 years, before man was even supposed to have reached the Pacific from Indonesia. It is no surprise, then, that many now try to claim that the cylinders never existed, and instead a mistake was made in regard to the actual basis of the tumuli, which have since been also revealed to have once been created using ancient concrete. However, this claim of convolution does not explain how we have many independent references to the cylinders found in a number of books and other articles of media dating to and just after their initial discovery. Also, the measurement of scale, which is clearly far too small to be attributed to the measuring of the mound's inner chambers. Furthermore, due to the controversy and impossibility to explain them using the already established chronology in regard to the migration of man, we have motive for many individuals to simply disappear the artifacts and, in their place, create a conspiracy to attempt to discredit their existence in the first place. Were these concrete cylinders buried in the tumuli for some reason? We still do not truly understand the function of these mounds. Yet could they have protected these artifacts for untold millennia? Perhaps also from a great flood? We find such possibilities highly compelling.
I'll tell
So
you
do
what,
I.
even without those cylinders, the mere
Well, the
fact
concrete,
that there is no such thing as ancient concrete.
No.
Concrete's only a couple of hundred years
Yeah,
old.
exactly.
And this, they actually dated it by the snails. Now, we're
That
looking
were
at the
in it, yeah.
patina again.
Yeah.
So I'd say that it's even older than its patina.
Sure.
And so we're talking at least 12,000 years ago.
It doesn't fit on the timeline.
What
you
were
know.
they used for? Something was
knows?
going on there. That
Big
was
time.
science
Yeah.
on an incredible level. And that still remains a major archaeological mystery.
Well, there is Warwick, who's
he was writing for Nexus magazine.
He was,
and
he
we're
wrote a
going to
couple
get
of
him
articles.
on
We're
as an
gonna try
interview.
and-
We've
I'm
pushed
trying
to
to
get
track
that.
him back down again.
Yes, we've
Yeah.
done a lecture with Warwick. All right, now we're going to step into Argentina. We're still in the southern hemisphere here,
Yes.
aren't we? And this is basically the rotating eye
It
that
is.
appeared only a few decades ago, perfectly cut.
Well, they say it's only about 20 years old.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a few decades, I said.
Yeah. So let's have a look at the
What's this-
presentation, and then we
Let's
can
just check out a little bit of background information on this. You're in down south Anomalies, of course. Where else would you be?
And we're doing the South Pacific, not the musical, but the mysteries.
Yeah,
Horror film director Sergio Newspiller is investigating reports of paranormal activity around a mysterious eye deep in an Argentinian swamp.
As you can see, it's a perfect formation.
He has finally reached the eye-shaped piece of swamp. He discovers that it's moving.
It's very weird how this island moved.
Satellite image analysis confirms Newspiller's discovery.
As I go through the historical imagery, I can actually watch it move as if it's following a pattern around the lake.
The historical images show the eye has been here and moving for 20 years.
Every day, the island was in a different position. I believe there's something that's actually pulling the island around the lake.
Newspiller climbs onto the eye to investigate.
Look at this shape. It looks for real that someone is cutting it. It's like it's floating. Look at this, the carpet. It's like a carpet.
The eye appears to be a floating disc covered in vegetation. Newspiller looks for clues as to how it was formed.
We are trying to go there, use a small underwater camera, and see if we can have some pictures. We are also trying to see if there's something human built or something.
Newspiller can find no evidence that the eye is man-made. But if it's natural, why is it so symmetrical? And why does it float?
As we walk, there are bubbles coming from the bottom. It's methane gas.
Methane gas is produced by decomposing organic material and is lighter than air.
Part of this gas might be one of the things that helps this island to float.
Floating islands do exist elsewhere in South America.
We do know that up in Peru in Lake Titicaca, there are these unique structures created by the Yuru people. They're actually reeds that are woven together to form islands, and people will actually live on these floating islands in the middle of the lake.
But there's a big difference between the islands in Peru and the eye in the middle of the swamp.
These floating
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, the eye in the middle of the swamp
Mhm.
is cut so well.
Yeah, I know.
It's similar to, like, the Mandelbrot set.
Mm.
You're looking at something there similar to the crop circle
Yeah,
phenomena.
yeah.
And, no matter what they try and tell you, here we go, we've got swamp gas happening again, bit of
I
methane.
know. I was like, oh, here we go. the
and
swamp
that's
gas.
fair enough.
Yeah.
But to get it that perfect and
Yeah.
then to have it, and it might be Paradolia,
It's been there for a couple of decades now,
Simulacra, that
apparently.
we're actually seeing that and
Mhm.
seeing a human iris. That might be the human mind composing that. But
But
there
it's
are-
round. It is round.
let me
It's
tell
a round
you,
eyeball.
historically,
Well, it looks like a round
and
eyeball.
Paul Wallace would say this,
mm.
that the notion of the circle of life
Mm.
is profound.
Oh,
and
now
in
you're
Gr-
reading so much into it.
well, that's what this is all about.
Isn't
in
it?
Greek culture,
Yeah.
the evil eye. Tell us about the evil eye. Come on. You pinned it to so much
Well, that was
clothing.
green.
I've
The
been
evil eye
indignant.
is blue,
Yeah, but
but
still,
it's supposed to ward off evil.
why do you use it? You use it
To
because
ward off evil.
I get a feeling that your culture historically was well aware of the sociopath and the
Well, not
psychopath.
necessarily, but you can
That some people
somebody's
would be a
intent
danger
that you
to you.
can that you can actually this thing that you can put something on someone. This I don't know how
Curse
to
them.
explain. Not curse them, but because of your jealousy or your negativity towards somebody, you can actually send a bad juju towards. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a curse, isn't it? What I'm explaining.
I love it.
But it's really it's
It
besides
makes me feel
you can't-
protected when
yeah,
you do that.
well,
For me, it makes me.
it doesn't hurt to
initiates that
wear
love.
it doesn't hurt to wear an evil
I tell
eye,
you, it
so
does hurt
go
if
for
the
it.
safety pin's not clipped.
But when they got into that gap where it was where the gap was, I thought, what if the island moves towards, would it crush them?
Yeah. That's
And how heavy
interesting.
and how thick? They didn't say how thick it was.
You know,
You
the
know what I
other
mean?
thing it's symbolic of
What's
is
that?
Tully here, which
Mhm.
was the big saucer nests, the
Right.
flying saucer nests that
Yep.
were in swamps,
Mhm.
and they were forming circular beds of reeds very similar to that.
Yeah.
All right, now North Sentinel Island.
Oh,
Tell
North
us about
Sentinel
this. Tell
Island.
us
Okay.
about where it's located.
Okay, it's in off the coast of India there, so close to the equator. I know we've gone
We're getting a
We've
little
gone
slipping
into the
sedimentary
northern.
drift.
Yeah, we
Yep.
are.
But we're
into the
talking
northern-
about islands.
But we are
here.
talking about islands and mysterious islands, or islands that have something that is unique. So Sentinel Island is the one where the race of people, the inhabitants, don't want anything to do with the outside world.
Now, people would be aware of this in
It was a huge
2018.
news story.
Where an American evangelist or
Yeah,
a
missionary.
Christian missionary.
Yeah.
And he sounded like to me, he was very much on the spectrum. He
Well,
wouldn't take no.
No for an answer.
And
So they gave him a spear. Done. Sorted.
yeah, and we had people here in Australia. There were an indigenous tribe around that whole A-bomb area in Maralinga.
Maralinga, yes.
The British atomic test there.
They didn't find him till about the 70s. Is that right?
The early
Yeah,
70s. And
74
should
or
they
something.
be found? Should they
Well,
actually be interfered with by the West?
Well,
And
we've
Papua
interfered
New
with
Guinea
everybody.
has lots of tribes still up there that it is illegal to go
They
anywhere
will
near them.
eat you.
Yeah, well,
They
that's
will
fair enough.
eat you.
Fair enough.
Fair
They
enough.
see food coming, we'll eat it as well.
Okay, let's
What's
go
the
here.
cruise ship about like in that regard? And that's another egalitarian issue on the cruise ship,
What's that?
is that You don't see people's weight, even though lots of families go on there just to eat that
Well,
shouldn't
you
be
know.
eating. But you don't see it. You don't
Well,
see their
you
disabilities.
shouldn't care.
Yeah, it doesn't
If
matter.
it doesn't,
Everyone's
you know
equal.
what? If something doesn't affect you
Yeah.
personally, why would you even comment?
Pass
Why would you
judgment
even
on
care?
others.
Why would you even care?
All right.
You know what I mean?
So let's have a look at this incredible little moment where we're eating the missionaries for dinner. It's sort of...
In November 2018, John Chow, a U.S. missionary, landed on North Sentinel Island. It's home to one of the few indigenous groups that have remained almost completely isolated from the rest of the world. They've achieved that level of seclusion by attacking anyone who dares to step foot on their island. Chow was chased away with bows and arrows 2 times. He recklessly tried a 3rd attempt to enter the forbidden territory. Others have barely survived these attacks. But the Chow's luck finally run out this time around? How to Survive presents the North Sentinel Island. North Sentinel Island is located in the Bay of Bengal. It's one of the Andaman Islands, and despite its tropical beaches, much of the region remains a mystery. Much of this has to do with it being under India's jurisdiction and laws making it a restricted area off limits to the general public. More than a century ago, the British colonized some of the Andaman Island. The takeover was extremely violent and even introduced diseases such as syphilis. The fear of the same catastrophic fate as their neighbors might be one of the reasons for the Sentinelese people's hostility towards outsiders. Few people have successfully made contact with the Sentinelese and walked away safe and sound to tell the tale. We're about to show you some of the most notorious stories. How could coconut save your life? Which items shouldn't you touch on the island? And what words helped a woman survive? Number 3. A coconut goes a long way. In 1991, anthropologist Madhubala Chuddapatiye and a small group of her colleagues succeeded interacting with some of the island's residents. When they spotted their small boat, 4 Sentinelese men armed with bows and arrows came to the shoreline. The anthropologist floated some coconuts over from a distance for the men to collect. The exchange went on for a few hours until a younger man raised his bow, but stopped after Chuddapatiye spoke using tribal words she had learned on other islands. With this level of trust established, the group came back shortly after for a second visit. On this trip, some of the Sentinelese even climbed on board, helping themselves to an entire bag of coconuts. But things went south when a researcher tried to take an ornament that one of the men was wearing. The disrespectful act was met with anger and the man brought out his knife, making it clear it was time for the team to leave. Luckily, no one was hurt. Number 2. Hospitality ran out. T.N. Pandit served as a regional head of India's Ministry of Tribal Affairs starting in the 1960s. Over several decades, he visited North Sentinel several times as part of expeditions without incident, until one situation when he encountered 24 islanders at the beach. One aimed his bow at the anthropologist, but a woman prevented him from firing at Pandit. The Sentinelese people were usually friendly to him, but they made it clear when his team members were venturing too far. Like on another trip, when a man signaled toward Pandit in a hostile manner, he drew his knife out and made a cutting gesture. Let's see what we've learned so far. Don't grab their belongings. You're giving them presents, not making trades. And if you're approaching the island, do it slowly and with respect. Otherwise, you could be dead in seconds. Number 1. Pushing the limits. Let's go back to John Chow's story. After he bribed local fishermen to bring him to the region, he spent 2 days trying to teach passages from the Bible to the Sentinelese. His efforts were not well received. Chow was forced off the island twice. On his 3rd attempt, he was killed and buried on the beach. His actions were done without permission from Indian authorities. He also hadn't been tested for any transmissible diseases. Chow died because he failed to understand that the islanders just wanted to be left alone. Unfortunately, The Sentinelese aren't the only ones suffering from the fallout of foreign intruders right now. Ukrainian civilians keep demonstrating.
That's it.
All right. Well, that
Yeah.
just shows you, I mean, the arrogance to
Jeez.
think you're able to step on there, you're going to bribe people.
This
irony
guy spent
too.
2 days preaching the word of God to them. It's like, what is wrong with you, mate?
Yeah, it's rather sad and
Did
it's
he
rather
did
arrogant.
he know their language?
Who knows? Who knows?
Because how did he communicate
I
with them?
think
Anyway,
he was a little bit on the spectrum. It sounds like he had an obsessive compulsive
was a bit
relationship in doing
nuts.
that sort of
Yeah.
stuff. But you should not go. These are untouched aspects of humanity. And this is the whole, don't you think this runs parallel with the notion of Bigfoot in many ways?
Oh, right, yeah.
You know, do we actually go in there, force it, kill it, bring it out to prove that it's real? Or do we just go, hey, we know that it's real.
It doesn't.
Do we have to take this any further?
Anyway, okay. Let's move along.
We've got an exciting island here coming up because
Socotra.
it has the dragon blood trees, doesn't it?
Look, the
I love those
fauna,
trees.
the fauna on this island is just astounding.
Tell us where this island is.
It's just off Yemen.
Okay,
off
so
Yemen.
we've
So
really
we're still-
slipped into the northern.
We have, but I looked at this
sedimentary
island.
drift, Doug. Sedimentary drift.
Yeah. It's just such an amazing island that we just needed
I think
to go
the one
there.
thing that's important to me about this island is it is a classic example of endemic uniqueness
Oh, absolutely.
on all these
Yeah,
islands.
yeah.
And this is why I bring up this petri dish notion,
Yes.
panspermia.
Panspermia,
If
yeah.
you were to think of this planet, as John Keel echoed in This Haunted Planet, that this is actually an environment that has been tested many times in terms of its adaptation or its evolution, that islands in their isolation make the perfect petri dish.
They do.
And when
They
we
do.
look at the massive continent that is Australia, as big as America, our species of life is just extraordinarily unique
It
to
is.
this continent alone. But now we're looking at tens, hundreds of thousands of unique islands, and this island has 700 unique species.
I know, which is bizarre.
Unbelievable.
Let's have a look at it.
The Socotra Archipelago, part of the Republic of Yemen in the Arabian Sea, supports so many diverse and unique species of life that it's been described as the most alien place on Earth. It's also a refueling stop for Somali pirates. Socotra is a UNESCO World Heritage Site selected for its unique endemic flora and fauna. Endemic species are exclusively native to only one place on Earth, be it an island, a forest, or a body of water. A species can be indigenous to multiple habitats, but for it to be endemic, it must live in only one place and nowhere else. And Socotra's got it like you have never seen. 37% of its plants, 90% of its reptiles, and 95% of its land snails are endemic to the island. It sports a total of over 300 endemic species, third only to Hawaii and the Galapagos in endemic biodiversity. Islands often have more endemics than other habitats because they're isolated, obviously. It's hard for island species to wander, and it doesn't take a rum-sodden, shipwrecked pirate to tell you that some pretty crazy stuff can happen on islands. That's right, I'm talking about funky plants. Socotra is full of them. Check out the queen of Socotra, Dracaena cinnabari, also known as the dragon's blood tree. The IUCN has red-listed this large evergreen, calling it an umbrella species for conservation, which is kind of funny because it kind of looks like a giant umbrella blown inside out on a windy day. The tree earned its sweet nickname from its propensity to ooze dark red sap called blood of the dragon. Valuable as a Targaryen's tears, this prized resin has been used since ancient times in making dye, cosmetics, medicine, and more recently, violin varnish. The tree's unique shape helps it survive arid conditions by catching mist in its waxy leaves and then funneling that water down to its well-shaded roots. Then there's your bulbous cucumber tree. Like your weirdo uncle, this tree is so different from other members of its family, in this case the family that includes pumpkins, melons, and gourds, that it's also the only species of its genus. And it's older than dirt. I mean literally older than dirt, at least the dirt that it grows in right now, since scientists recently discovered that the cucumber tree's lineage is about twice as old as Socotra itself, indicating that the tree is an isolated relic of some ancient, now extinct mainland progenitor. Not to be outdone in the grotesque swelling department, desert roses are scattered across the Socotran landscape. These so-called bottle trees store water in their chunky trunks to fight off drought. The island subspecies can grow much bigger and more ridiculous looking than their mainland cousins, reaching heights of up to 5 meters of bulk and bulge. Because they're only found in one place in the world, endemic species are particularly vulnerable to extinction brought on by human factors, natural events, and increasingly, changes in climate. Few people travel to Socotra, but the island is working on expanding tourism in hopes of fostering conservation. So maybe next time spring break rolls around, forget Cancun and get thee to Socotra and taste the drink.
And do not get thee to
No,
Socotra.
stay away from it. It is the jewel of
Can you imagine
biodiversity in the Arabian Sea.
Thousands of drunken teenagers on that landscape.
Don't need it, don't need it,
Trample
don't need it.
everything. But
Those
anyway,
trees. Now, do you reckon when Charlie Sheen lost it, and got crazy leaving 2.5 Men, you know how he was going on about dragon's blood? Do you think he was sort of getting
don't know.
access to the
Maybe,
tree?
who
the sap of that
knows?
tree. I'm sure he wasn't a violinist. Now, we
but do go and have a look at these
and
things
thanks
on
to the Science
YouTube.
Show there.
There's
Check
there's
them
so
out too.
many more stories on there, and Socotra is just fascinating.
All right,
Fascinating.
now the most haunted island in the world.
Yeah.
That is debatable.
Poveglia. Well, it's pretty. Yeah, you'll see why.
Now,
but
where
this
is
is in
Poveglia?
Italy. This is in Italy.
Also, we've really slipped now.
Well,
haven't we?
we're doing islands and islands with
Well, it was
that are
one huge landmass at one stage anyway. So no, let's not get sort of elitist with this.
yeah. Okay, let's go there now.
An island near Venice, used only to hide away the dying and the mentally ill, and supposedly the most haunted island on planet Earth. This is the story of Poveglia Island, and this is interesting. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Poveglia Island is situated neatly in the South Lagoon between Venice and Ludo. For centuries it had been a refuge, a stronghold, a place of exile, a dumping ground for the diseased, the dying, and the dead. In 421 AD, Poveglia welcomed its first dwellers. They were the men, women, and children who had fled the invaders that had torn across mainland Italy. The small size of the island made it easily defendable, and not at all worth the trouble of any invading armies. Thus, a small community slowly grew and lived in peace. For almost 1,000 years, they avoided the laws and taxes of the mainland, until their population fell to nothing, and the island was abandoned. By 1348, the bubonic plague had spread its way through Italy, eventually nestling itself into Venice. Poveglia, like many other small islands in the area, became a quarantine colony. If a Venetian fell ill with the plague, they were exiled to Poveglia, where eventually they would die and be burnt to cinder on giant pyres. Tens of thousands burned at the pyres, some dead and some alive. This was all repeated 300 years later, when the Black Death once more grasped Venice's beating heart. By the end of it all, over 160,000 people were burned or buried on Poveglia. The Black Death was the single most devastating epidemic to ever attack the human race. According to the CDC, the Ebola virus that scared us all not too long ago killed around 22,620 people in West Africa. The Black Death killed over 20 million people across Europe. It was such a violent disease that you could send a healthy person to bed one day and the very next day they could have died. It was dangerous too because of how contagious it was. Merely touching the clothes of someone that had the disease could very easily pass on the contagion. In the late 1800s, Poveglia was used once more, though not for the burning of the deathly ill. Instead, the holding of the mentally ill. The Poveglia Asylum was a poorly constructed facility, and it was used as a place of exile rather than a place to make people better. In the 1930s, rumours circulated that a doctor performed ungodly experiments on the patients there. This doctor eventually supposedly went mad and threw himself from the bell tower. It is said that the dark energy and spirits of the damned drove him to his insanity. By the 19th...
You know what? That is an amazing story.
Now, they say they reckon that the soil on that island is half of it is human ash.
Human ash.
Human
Now, you
remains.
know, that story resonates with you and I, and I'll
Does
tell
it?
you why.
Why is that, Katz?
Because when I first met you,
Mhm.
you were working with a very interesting group of long-term institutionalized and disabled
Pete Island.
individuals.
Yeah, people from Pete
And
Island.
they were on an island.
They
now,
were.
islands were used as a great
They've
place
always been
to
used.
remove
Yep.
from the general public.
And hide.
Deformities and illnesses.
And be able to conduct interesting experiments.
And we're afraid that quite a few of those people had actually been through hell, some of the behavior they were showing. And that island was eventually broken down. But I'll give you an example. Hydrocephaly patients, which, in layman's terms is water on the brain, any of those that live beyond the age of 10,
if they survived,
were taken to Pete Island.
Yeah.
Because they were deemed visually too offensive. Can you believe that?
Well,
Too offensive. Yeah.
Anyway, let's not go there.
Well, that has amazing resonance with us.
Oh, for sure.
As therapists and workers.
Yeah.
That islands are used, and look today. Nauru.
Well, Nauru,
Detention camp.
detention camps,
And it's just basically an island
and
made
that's
of
in
guano.
the South Pacific. Oh my God!
And we have met people that have spent years living there.
Absolutely.
Children, teenagers.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Frightening.
Anyway,
all right. Let's go to look. How do you define something as being the most haunted? That's completely absurd. It's anathema.
Yeah.
So the next island we're going
they've
to.
actually started to try and reconstruct and fix all those buildings up and stuff. So I don't know what they're going to do with them now.
All right.
But
The next island we're going to is back to the Pacific.
Yep.
And it's deemed extremely haunted as well.
It is. It's a interesting story there. Let's go.
A little later here, can a whole island be cursed? One seemingly idyllic island paradise to the north of the Pacific Ocean is known for its beauty, but perhaps even more well known as being a cursed place viewed with evil. Lama, is that how I say it? Island is located. Thank you. In the North Pacific Ocean, it's 1,000 miles due south of Hawaii and roughly halfway between the Hawaiian Islands and wherever.
American Samoa.
An isolated place with no permanent inhabitants, largely overgrown with vegetation.
Palmyra
has long been said to be a remarkably sinister place for a wide variety of supernatural events, mysteries, and unexplainable phenomena. Look at that.
Yeah.
After the island's discovery in 1789.
Palmyra quickly gained a reputation for being a place of weirdness.
Passing ships reported that ghostly lights could be seen flickering about on the then totally uninhabited island, and surrounding waters were said to be infested with vicious sharks and mysterious sea creatures.
Yeah.
The perilous reefs.
Well, that's not so mysterious. The perilous reef will
also infamous for wrecking ships.
Yeah.
They spoke of how these reefs seem to spontaneously jut forth from the sea from their own manifestations. The reefs of
Palmyra
Island was said to be like some sort of willfulness, deadly watching things protecting the island from intruders. There are many mysterious tales about wrecks upon the island and their survivors. One such case occurred in 1877 when an American ship, the Angel, crashed onto Palmyra's reefs. A group of survivors apparently managed to make the shore and would never be lived to tell the
Another ship later made a brief stop at Palmyra, but found the bodies of the angels were scattered around the island.
The exact reason for the crew's death and who the perpetrators were of these brutal murders remains unknown.
One of the most famous of Palmyra's shipwrecks is the Spanish pirate ship, the Esperanza,
which crashed upon the reefs of the island in 1816 while carrying vast amounts of silver and gold looted from the Inca temple in Peru.
Survivors of the wreck managed to load some of the treasure onto the raft and make it to the island. Anyway, after being stranded on Palmyra for over a year with no sign of rescue, the crew buried the treasure and made a risky attempt to escape from the island. Only a single crew member managed to get rescued by a passing ship going shortly after the pneumonia hit without ever revealing the location of the treasure.
The hidden treasure that stole the Inca silver and gold reportedly remains on Palmyra to this day. In addition to the wrecked ship, the seas around Palmyra have also become notorious for ships vanishing without a trace. And there are many stories of ships entering the island's waters and never being heard of again.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to stop it there because it's, it goes on
and
about all the
music's
shipwrecks.
driving me insane.
But there's a story in, when
right.
was it? In 1974. So a couple went sailing around in their early 40s. Mr. and Mrs. Graham dreamed of traveling the world aboard their boat, which was called the Sea Wind. Setting sail in 74, they planned to stay on Palmyra for a few years before continuing on their voyage, though they tragically would never leave the island. Apparently, they got murdered on there.
Really?
This couple went on there.
And is that part of the haunting stories?
Part of that. And there was, I think if you look on YouTube, there is a story that was done on 60 Minutes about this couple and the people that killed them, because a couple later turned up on the Sea Wind and were promptly arrested and, they found. So there's a whole thing. So just look up the Palmyra. Mr. and Mrs. Graham were the couple that were murdered by this other people. So, interesting stuff.
A lot of intrigue on these islands. You can get away with hell. I mean, look what was happening with Epstein Island. What was going on there.
And Lolita, you mean Lolita Island?
And that was
there's nothing mysterious about that.
Well, there is, because he had actually Egyptian sort of sacrificial temples.
Yeah, but he put them on there, because he's got issues.
How about they had submarines and Ghislaine was riding in the submarine? Yeah. And
where do you go to learn how to pilot a submarine?
She was also flying Chinook helicopters, I believe, very badly.
Anyway,
but you know what? It was a submarine. Are you ready for this? You can actually buy out of the Sears catalog. I reckon they're up on Amazon thanks to Bezos. It was a submarine with a heated swimming pool in it.
Yeah,
how is that possible?
How does that work? That's a big submarine.
No idea.
Must be a tiny, maybe a spa, not a swimming pool.
Well, we were told by the scientists at the Australian Museum here that all those little submersibles that go deep into the ocean, they don't have a toilet on them. Once you're in there, you've got to make sure you hold on that bladder.
How do you hold on?
Or you're in trouble. Especially around water. The sound of water. All right, is this our very last island?
This is our last island.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
I mean, there are a lot of islands. I mean, get on there and there's just
we
fascinating.
Thought we'd resolved our issue with our headphones and the tracking there. We brought on the ship, we actually purchased these beautiful earplugs and they didn't work at all. We've had to shoot the show twice. Yeah.
Anyway.
So we'll get it sorted eventually.
Oh, I doubt it. But anyway, okay, so we're going to Rarotonga, the Rarotonga's Cursed Hotel. So
it's a hotel on an island
on Rarotonga.
And what's an elephant got to do with it? What's the elephant in the room on that?
You will see the elephant in the room. Let's
go
with this one. Okay.
I said, what are you going to do? And he said, then you'll go and curse the land with the shirt in his. The man who is supposed to have done that, his name is More Amo. But his title name is More Ruataunga. That's his kind of title name that he took. He came and asked me to carve him a staff. He said, then you'll go and curse the land where the Sheraton is. Then I said to him, who do you think you are? You think you're God? He went on a road, there was a huge basalt rock with a bronze plaque on it. So he stabbed that with the stick he had, and it cracked. He said, I demand that you stop everything from happening here. And after he's done that, I just followed him. I think he's an assault. He was an idiot. And then years after, everything failed. There have been many attempts by different companies from everywhere to go back into the place and continue the project, but nobody have been successful yet. No. And I didn't believe him initially, but I think I'm beginning to believe him.
Gee whiz.
Yeah. So Rarotonga.
I tell you what, there is so much exploitation in these island communities as well.
There are. I mean, these big conglomerates go in there and they build resorts, and the problem is that these places are never belong to the people that live there. They belong to outsiders, and they employ them.
Take your headphones
But
off. Let's get a clearer vision of you without them doing that stuff. We can talk together now.
But they employ them, at slave wages, because their job is to make a profit for their investors, and they don't really care about the people, that live
It's
there.
horrendous, really, when you
It
think
is
about
horrendous,
it. Yeah.
and the exploitation that goes on.
Now, recently,
mm.
the Australian Federal Police, and
Yeah.
I think with Interpol and numerous other services,
Yeah.
have discovered one of the largest hauls of cocaine floating in the South Pacific.
Wow.
And it was all tied to, I think they were little buoys that were floating. So it looked like a very odd, anomalous image.
Right.
But it was evidently just kilos and kilos
Wow.
of cocaine.
Where would they have appeared? Did they throw them off a plane or overboard, or
I
what's
think
the
they've
story?
come actually off boats.
Right.
And you know what? We were well aware after 9 days of how isolated that is. And we were speaking before about no air travel
Yes.
across
We didn't
there.
see one plane
Yeah.
the whole time.
And the reason for that is, and we've said it, is primarily it's not economical fuel-wise
fly.
to do that.
Yeah.
But also, because it's so isolated, it's so deep. You've got the major trench there.
The Mariana Trench.
It's a nightmare if something goes down with your plane in terms of people getting to you.
You'll just disappear.
And I have many nights of trying to self-affirmate an anomalous experience in the skies, you know?
Yeah.
And we lost a dear friend just before we went, and I was trying to get that person to get in touch with me with some sign up there. Of course, nothing happened in that regard.
Maybe she couldn't find
But,
you.
recently there was some incredible news stories, and I'd pulled a few out of these red luminous objects on the surface that actual,
Oh, right, yeah.
some air travel was seeing. I think they were around the peripheries, or they were chartered flights.
Yeah.
I did see one plane in the distance at one stage. And one thing that does shock you is you don't see any other sea traffic either.
No, you don't.
You realize how isolated you are. It did turn out to be trawlers.
Trawlers, yeah, with red lights.
That were using massive, luminous neon lights to attract a certain fish.
Yeah.
And they were seen as an anomaly. And then the other thing that's been occurring is these large sort of what appear to be the gas or volcanic eruptions all across that water area, which is becoming more and more repetitive. In that regard.
Okay.
But for most of the time at sea, on that cruise, we saw absolutely nothing.
No, we didn't.
I mean, there's some incredible alpha wave, beautiful thing to be able to watch a sunset and stare at that large body of water. We're made up predominantly of water.
We are.
So we resonate
sacks
with
of
it.
water we are.
Look, we cannot recommend cruising more highly.
That's
because
true.
it is cheap,
I just
it
love
is
it.
effective.
And you have a good time.
Disabled people, unusual people, in all sorts of body shapes and
It's an
sizes
amazing, it's
can
an
feel the
amazing
same.
People, if you love watching people,
Yeah. It's a
that's where
very
to go.
humbling experience
Mhm.
because you realize the sacrifice that the crew is making
Mhm.
to make this happen, how
Yeah.
strong, incredible, and how beautiful those people remain, how
Yeah.
polite, how
Yeah.
caring and loving they are
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
you.
they are.
And we're, in a sense, it's like we just bring on this incredible ulcer that is Western decadence to it and to those untouched areas. But
Yeah.
it is profound. And, eventually in our research,
Mhm.
we will do much more on the islands. I think they're really neglected in the world of
Mhm.
anomalous
Mhm.
inquiry.
Yeah, they are.
And we can't thank you enough for actually, look, your whole head has disappeared.
It has. I'm going to put
into
my headphones
yeah.
back on.
Mine hasn't.
go.
I mean, look at this. I can do all sorts
Yeah.
of hairstyles here.
You can.
And it's fine.
That's an
Look at that
interesting
one.
hairstyle.
All right.
Bit mohawkish. Anyway, that was our
A little peek.
South
Just
Sea,
a little taste.
South Pacific, not the musical, but the mysteries.
Yeah, absolutely.
I loved it. It was a fabulous holiday. We had such a good time. We've come back rejuvenated, and
We really bonded with the kids. Our
did.
our grandchildren ran wild,
Oh,
didn't
they
we?
did. They
At one
did.
point, our 7-year-old Dean, who was so gorgeous
Yeah.
and so alive, there was a big glass lift in the middle
I
of the
know,
boat,
I
isn't
know.
there?
Yeah.
And it goes 11 floors.
Yes.
Up and
yes,
down.
Up and
We
down.
saw that lift moving rapidly from
Yeah.
the third floor.
And he was in it
Then we
waving at
noticed
us.
our grandson just waving
He was
continuously.
hilarious.
Yeah,
How does it was 7-year-old? We went to the restaurant the first night. We went to the restaurant. We sat down and he said, "Can I have the menu?" And I'm like, "That's the adult menu, darling. You've got your children's menu there." He said, "No, I want to look at the adult menu." And he opened it up and looked at it. He probably didn't even read it. And he said, "Have they got escargot, aka snails, on here?" And I'm like, "What? What is this?"
You know what?
The
It's
child.
it's
It's
a
like
great exercise.
children today, I tell you, the things that they know,
But it's a great exercise
Anyway.
for kids
Mm.
in socialization.
it is.
And for adults, it is a petri dish afloat,
Yeah.
an anthropological study
Mhm.
of all the different nationalities and races
Yeah,
colliding
yeah.
in one area and
Yeah.
having to get on.
And getting along,
Yeah,
which is great.
because as our cruise entertainment director told us, Andy,
Oh, he was
that,
hilarious.
the truth of your relationship will be revealed at sea.
Oh, yeah.
Because you get on the ship and it's a bit like the TARDIS. It is so expansive, so extraordinary, you can't believe it even floats. But then you get into your room and it is so confined that you might as well be in a prison cell. So if you don't get on with that person
Yeah.
you supposedly are
Yeah.
attached to,
Yeah.
or you've got the room with, you are going to see sparks fly.
Really
And
quickly.
we saw many nights where sparks were flying
Yeah.
in the most unusual ways.
Mhm.
But anyway, look, we are Down South Anomalies. We're very proud to be part of the Untold Radio Network. I suggest you check out all the other podcasts on the site. I believe that we are the X factor of Untold Radio because they can't really lord over us. Not that Doug lords over anyone. He doesn't. He lets you develop your own strength.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
we're sort of lost and crazy down here with the tyranny of distance.
We are.
But we will see you all next week. We really appreciate you being with us.
Mhm.
And we
Tell your
cannot
family, tell your friends.
get on there, subscribe, hit the button.
Yep.
When we finally do it live, we'll get up the super chat stickers. But in the meantime, if you've got a little bit of over abundance, help the Untold Radio Network crack consensus reality. There is so much other material that a counterpoint needs to be developed that opens to inquiry and wonder and just makes the imagination grow. And I think no matter how you feel or think about this subject matter, that this is an imagination expander.
Absolutely.
And we thank you so much for your time. We want to say all our respect and love to each and every one of you. Take good care. And now I'm going to get Anton, our cat,
Oh, yeah.
back
Let
into
him
this
back
room
down.
before he tears the door
Put the
down.
phone back on.
You've been on South Pacific, not the musical, the mystery, Down South Anomalies, part of the Untold Radio Network. We'll see you all next week.
We'll be back next week with another program.
Absolutely.
Okay, bye.